Hey, welcome. I'm John Doyle. I'm a SAN certified instructor here. I teach the Cyber Threat Intelligence course, R Forensics 578-1. As you heard from the background, I've got quite a bit of experience under my belt working in public and private sector. But this panel isn't about me. It's actually about trying to land your first job into a cybersecurity discipline. So we are fortunate enough to have three seasoned practitioners here kind of talk to their experiences, all of which are unique and diverse. And I think they're going to emphasize a lot of the points that have been raised in some of these previous talks. So without further ado, let me turn it over to you guys to maybe introduce yourselves. Jibby, maybe we start with you, then we'll go Zach and Sarah. Oh, Jibby, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Jibby. I kind of live like two lives. I do watch and jewelry repair during the day, and then at night, I am a threat intel content lead now at KC7 Cyber. So if you've checked out the CTF today, that's something that I helped develop to share with you all today. Love it. So we got trash day over here, so it's kind of loud.
Okay, very cool. Thanks for that. I'm going to continue to call you Jibby just because I know that's your handle, and that's just easier in my mind.
Yeah, I should change my name on the screen because that's really what I go by. That's what all my friends call me, and everyone here is my friend now.
Love it, love it. Zach, let me turn it over to you next.
All right, thanks, John. Good morning, everyone, and it's great to be here at SANS this morning. I'm Zach Schramm, a consultant with Mandiant and Google Cloud. I do a lot of cyber defense work for our customers who are in all sorts of different industries, mostly in the Fortune 100 space, helping them really operationalize some of their cyber defense intelligence and platforms to make it work for them. And yeah, have a diverse background that we'll dig into here in just a minute, but real excited to be here with everyone this morning. Thanks.
Love it. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you, John. And after those illustrious descriptions, I'll have the more usual one. So most of my life was spent in the banks, UBS, BofA, Citi, JP Morgan. And then I pivoted to another industry in the power industry and then technology to see what the other side is like, more or less more like Zach's side of the story, maybe, and then to retail. So when you think about that career, it shows you right away that there's a lot of flexibility that what we do gives us. And I'm really happy to be here and really excited to hear everybody's thoughts. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Quick PSA. Well, I have some pre-scripted questions that I intend to ask our panelists. You are here, this is your time, and we want to make the most of it. So I will be monitoring the Slack channel here, the hashtag 1A questions for speakers. So as those questions come up, feel free to post them here, and I will then relay. Okay, cool. So Sarah, Zach, Jibby, my first question for you. You've heard a lot of the themes come out of today already. We've kind of talked a little bit about what it looks like coming into this field from red team, looking at the blue team side of the house, detection engineering. I know, Sarah, you've got kind of the GRC risk background experience. Zach, you've got more of the traditional SOC build out experience. And Jibby, boy, you're just a jack of all trades, kind of breaking in yourself in some degrees. First question for you is about transferable skills. What have you found has been the most helpful in springboarding your career and trying to land a job in this field? What do you think is kind of the most important? And we've heard Meryl and Matt kind of talk to some of those in their talk track, and even a little earlier today in our first talk, we heard some of that too. Let me maybe start with Sarah, and then we'll go Zach, and then over to you, Jibby. How's that sound?
Sure. Thank you, John. So in my case, I would think that coming from a hiring manager background as well, I think what I like to look for is people who have a lot of drive, curiosity, adaptability, flexibility, etc. And there are a lot of transferable skills out there that you can bring to the table, even when you're new to cyber. If you have any kind of project management skills or any kind of coordination kind of skills, which you can even get in informal situations or volunteering situations, etc. So project management and, typically we see a lot of people come through the IT portal. You can come through some of the very unusual areas as well. As Jibby even illustrates, something totally not connected, and you can jump into this area. But I think most of the transferable skills would be your ability to be analytical, perhaps, and be able to learn new things, always be on the cutting edge, so to speak, of new technology. The curiosity is what will take you further, because you will come with some skills, but you always have to keep building on them.
That's awesome. You hit a lot of themes there that I see come up today: adaptability, communication, softer skills, problem solving, critical thinking.
Yeah.
All of those, irrespective of your background and your upbringing. If it's not in cybersecurity, you can absolutely transfer those. It's just about making it marketable.
Yeah.
Cool. Zach, your thoughts on transferable skills?
Absolutely. I think there's so much that people bring to the security world, and I think that's really one of the strongest suits of our community in cybersecurity, is that there's this great diversity of different perspectives and backgrounds that come and become cybersecurity professionals, whether it's SOC analysts or GRC people, or we have detection engineers. We see seasoned system admins that come in with 20, 30 years of experience and have that really strong technical background. But then we have accountants who are changing careers into GRC because they love the compliance side, but they want to do the technical and the cyber thing too. Or we have people from teachers that can really help push that knowledge down and know how to make things understandable and bite-sized pieces to understand some of these complex cyber topics. They're able to take that curriculum development skill set they have and really help teach a team a new skill set. So I think that's really great. I actually had a great example of this. I was teaching a class for a group of law enforcement professionals about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And they were struggling with some of the concepts of like identifying root cause in a security incident. And I was like, guys, you have the methodology, you understand this. Treat it like it's a regular crime scene, right? Because you know how to investigate a crime scene, find root cause, like who did what, right? Try to find the smoking gun type thing. Treat it as that and run down that methodology that you've been trained in your skill set in your field. And once they did that, it clicked and they suddenly got hooked on like identifying some of the exercises that we're going through of like understanding how to find root cause, look through those logs to find the ones that are anomalies. So I think there's a lot of great transferable skills that you can have when you're coming into security, and you don't necessarily have to forget everything that you've been taught so far. Maybe you can bring some of that experience and help it transfer to security and give us a new way to look at things as well.
Ooh, that was awesome. I heard you mention some mentorship and frame of reference, putting things into the context that somebody else knows and can speak to. That's awesome.
100%.
Jibby, over to you.
Yeah, I love this question because I think that coming into this thing, I felt very overwhelmed with what I didn't know. And it took me the last year's new to cyber to realize that, oh yeah, you can enter this with like different skill sets. So instead of having to think about like, what are the components that make up a printer? And I have to understand that, I could just focus on, okay, what do I know and what can I bring to the table? And for me, it was always problem solving, paying attention to details and remembering things really well, being really good at documenting my steps as I work through problems. And I felt like when I started to approach like cybersecurity challenges with that kind of like framework, they started to become a lot more fun for me, first of all, and then they started to make a lot more sense for me. And that kind of led to my success across different platforms. Because I could take that like problem solving skill and I could apply it to a data set and, okay, what are the problems here? And I can ask those questions that I needed to ask without thinking too much about all the finer kind of technical details. I could focus on like the big picture and the story. And those were things that I understood. And I felt like bringing that from my line of work into this is what really helped me kind of grow.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that passion has come up a few times. Curiosity, Sara said it. Zach, I heard it in your talk track there also. That's wildly important as we go through. I'm already starting to see some of the questions come into the chat, so maybe we pivot since it's directly relevant. The notion of having certifications, how does that help you, or does that help you land a job? Where should you put that on your resume? Should it be there? Kind of explore this.
Yeah.
Let's again kind of use that same ordering. Sarah, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so certifications are good in a sense that it shows that you have an interest in the discipline and you've put some rigor into it, you've taken a test and passed it. Ultimately, it's what you do on the job that's more important, because you can have a whole alphabet soup of certifications, but if you don't have all the other things we mentioned, the root cause analysis, for instance, like Zach said, like Jibby said, the ability to be structured, have some organizational skills where you are documenting things, trying to organize things in your mind, etc. So I think there are some certifications that one could look for, but when you're new to cyber, it's very difficult to get the really respected ones. You need a lot of experience to get a CISSP or any of the other big industry certifications. So what do you do in the beginning when you're just trying to break in? There are some, I think CompTIA has some basic ones, and I think also there are vendors sometimes who will train you, they will do demos, etc. But really what you need is some practical exposure to things. And that will come from maybe an internship or volunteering for projects, etc. And like Jibby did, he just jumped in and started teaching himself. So again, it comes back to how well you can apply all of those things on the job, not just having a whole lot of certifications. So they have a value. It gets your foot in the door. They're good on your resume, of course. You don't want to have too many, because then that tells the person it's just a test taker. Have some very focused ones. For instance, I think you could get the Network Plus, because when I'm looking for somebody, even in GRC, I would like them to know about networking and a little bit about this SDLC and general IT kind of terms. You can take a fundamental CompTIA IT Plus or something like that, or an A Plus. Some of them, as you keep going, also need you to be a little bit more exposed to the field, say 9 to 12 months. And then there is another one, say the Security Plus one, you need about 2 years of experience. But there are some beginner ones. And then there are people who are actually going to school for cybersecurity. I recently spoke at Columbia University to a whole class full of people who are taking a master's in cybersecurity or a risk management type of field. So you're already learning all those things that would be in the certification. So it depends on what track you're taking and how you want to see your career go. But there are certain areas where you don't necessarily have to be certified. You could come in through project management, for instance. It doesn't have to be a cybersecurity certification. You could be a project manager, whether you have a PMP Agile or not. Again, in the beginning, it doesn't really matter, because even those, again, need experience. So it becomes that chicken or the egg story sometimes, catch-22. How do I get experience if I don't have certification? And how do I get a certification if, the other way around as well? So I think, again, it comes down to, it's good to have some certifications. You can have some fundamental certifications, put them on your resume. But again, try to get as much practical experience as you can. Just get in somewhere, and then you can start moving laterally as well, probably in the environment that you enter. Usually it's easier when it's a bigger corporation, but then also the flip side is true. If it's a smaller company, then you get spread out across various areas as well, and maybe they can use you more in various areas. So, and then the rest of it is luck, where you end up, right? But definitely certifications are good, but not the only thing you need.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Sarah. So there are some good points to certifications. Zach, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. There's definitely a baseline, right, where you want to start. Sarah mentioned some of them, like the CompTIA. I think SANS is a new one now that's like a precursor even to GSEC, which is a great way to, kind of get your feet wet in security and then, build yourself up. Like Sarah said, right, don't have the alphabet soup necessarily of certifications, especially if you're starting out, because one, you don't necessarily know where you're going to go in your security field. Maybe you say, hey, you know what? I got into security operations and I love this forensics thing, and then you want to go take the forensics route, right? But then all of a sudden you have spent so much time, not that it's necessarily bad that you have the knowledge, but going after some of the more like administrative certifications, or maybe doing like some cloud-based stuff, right? So I think that trying to start out, get your feet wet with some of those entry-level certifications, prove that you have the security knowledge to get on the job on the first day and understand what's going on. But I think, like Sarah said, just really hit it on the head as far as you're going to get environments in security and they're not what you see in textbooks, right? You get into a security operations center and you see, wow, we have half of our machines that aren't covered with an EDR tool, right? So you're not getting alerting on that. How do you accommodate, or how do you, take care of that, right? Account for that in that situation. You all of a sudden see something that gets breached, right? Well, it's like, well, you have different, or maybe you get an alert that looks anomalous, right? And you're like, hey, this could be really bad. But since you've been working in a security operations, SOC, or maybe even, working in a different IT role, you're like, hey, I know that Windows event code just means that it's something benign that might be a system just, running an update or a Python script that looks really bad, but really it's updating Microsoft Defender's, definition, something like that, right? You don't get that experience necessarily from just, a certification. So not to say that they're bad. I definitely think they're good, and I've pursued them as well. But really building up that hands-on experience is important. I got my start in security by working as an intern while I was in college doing my undergrad. And over the 4 years, I did a year and a half in a SOC role. I did another about a year or so in a enterprise security type space where I was helping with like security authorizations and some of the more enterprise system security stuff, the business side of it. And then also did some cyber policy. So I got to see how these different umbrellas of security all play into each other, and didn't have a certification when I graduated college, got hired right away because of that practical hands-on experience that I had. And then went after the things like Security Plus and started building that up a little bit and working from there. So it is doable to get hired without a certification. And not to say that that's the way you should go. Kind of feel it out for yourself, but it is doable. And I know Jimmy's probably chomping at the bit to talk about that as well. So I'll hand off to him and defer to him. But yeah, definitely, take it with a grain of salt and take bite-sized pieces. Don't overexert yourself on all the certification. So yes, thanks.
Yeah, I think what Zach said was great. I'm only going to speak from like the perspective of somebody who's trying to get their first role and getting started in it. And you go everywhere and it'll tell you get the A+, the Net+, and the Security Plus. And I kind of feel like in a sense that's a recipe for like disappointment. It's like making a dish and you have a recipe for it, and your dish comes out wrong and you're confused. Like, I did everything right and it doesn't taste good, right? And Sarah touched earlier on curiosity, and I'm kind of thinking about, what if you just make a dish and you just kind of feel things out, and then you kind of slowly make that dish, you taste it, and instead of trying to reinvent the whole thing, you're like, okay, let me add a little bit more salt next time. Let me add a little bit more basil next time. And that's kind of much more like a kind of a growth way of approaching making something or building a new path into cybersecurity. I started with the A+, and for me, it was just not a good experience. It was expensive, and I feel like because it was expensive, there was a lot of pressure to not fail it. And so I did a lot of memorization, and a week later, I had forgotten all of it. It wasn't until last year at KC7, the talk that Sibyun gave about gaming your way into cybersecurity, where it was like, oh, there's an alternative path here where I could just do stuff that's fun, adventurous, and I could just let my mind wander and grow that way. And I feel like the fact that the certifications are so expensive makes it unfair to like a big group of people who maybe can't afford those things. And again, like, I'm not against them. Like, if you're already working and you want to level up, but for starting out, I feel like I've seen lots of people who have all of them, and they're looking for a job. And like, I don't understand. Like, I have all the certifications and I can't get an interview, and that's going to be a struggle. And so, I tend for myself personally to stay away from it. I'm very much like, on the KC7 cyber team, and it is part of my goal to get that job without the certification, so I can say that I've done it to prove that it works that way. And beyond that, I also want to be very successful at my first role so that I can show that you can come from a hands-on like approach into it. John has like this really fantastic blog that he shared where you can build like a portfolio just based on your experience doing different platforms. That's another way to highlight your skills as opposed to just, throwing up a test that you took. Like, I don't know, like who goes to work and, pick one of four and that's your answer for the day. Like, it just doesn't seem like practical from my point of view. So I guess I'm the advocate for choose your own path. And if you like taking tests, go for it, do it, and if you want to spend a lot of money on some pretty like low tech kind of tests for a really kind of high tech industry, go for it. But like I think cybersecurity is fun because it's like a game, right? Like, and I think Greg Schlomer said this, and he said that like you have attackers on one side and you have defenders on the other side, and it is like a game. But the approach into this career is not like a game, and it's not fun. And I'm trying to come here and change that, I guess, in a sense, and try to show people like a different path if that's what they're into.
I like that. So we had a lot of really diverse perspectives there, weighing kind of the pros and cons, the merits of not just security certifications, but also transferable skills and how to grow. Maybe we can build on that for this next question. So I'm seeing a lot of people weighing in on the chat here about, hey, I'm trying to switch mid-career. How do I highlight some of the skills that I have? What are some ways to get involved? How do I gain that experience through things like home labs? And then what do I do? Do I post it on GitHub? Do I put my write-up somewhere? Let's actually start with you, Jibby, and then we'll work backwards. So we'll go Jibby, Zach, and Sara on this one.
Okay, yeah. So for me, my approach has always been towards the hands-on learning approach. I started first with TryHackMe, and then you'll see the ADX background. That's where I lived last year from like March until like probably December. I was on that platform every single night, just playing away with data and trying to pivot around every kind of piece of evidence I can find and reconstruct security events. I would take those things, I would practice writing reports because I felt like by writing reports, it made me have to focus on all the parts that I might be missing in the story. And so my approach has always been towards a hands-on learning, and then you have like a list of things that you can show and talk about in an interview. So when you go into an interview, like nobody's going to care about your certifications. They're going to ask you like, you're alone in the SOC. It's like 3 a.m. in the morning. You haven't eaten anything all day. You get a security alert, and what do? If you've practiced it enough, you can work around those questions in an interview. From pulling from your experience of practicing. And beyond KC7, I do things like I play on the anti-siphon cyber range where you can pull up like forensics challenges. Those go on my resume as experience. I do things like reverse engineering of malware, which I find to be really fun. So I guess like it's just like a kind of a learning path of like discovering new kind of things to just practice and challenge yourself with. It's very much fun to like open up a Google browser and solve something for the first time that you've never heard about. So I'm sorry, I'm probably getting away from the original question, but yeah, I mean, you can do things to highlight your skills without having to have those certifications. I don't have any certifications on my resume. I threw out the A+, it doesn't even sit there, and I just kind of, on my resume, I just highlight top 1% TryHackMe. I won this CTF. I'm top 1% here, ranked whatever. And those go at the very top. Those are my achievements. So those are what I'm proud of. And then below that, then I write whatever technical skills I have. I try to keep it very kind of not tool centric. And then under my experience is like directly what I've done across these different platforms that I feel like I can apply to the job role that I'm applying to. So if somebody wants to take the GitHub and write a tool, that's cool. I'm more of I like to do reports. I like to make mind maps. And so those are the things that I show as part of my work to highlight, what I can do.
Very cool. So you put a lot of your volunteer work on the resume, your practice in cyber ranges, even your involvement with KC7, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Zach, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely see the value in having a home lab, right? So maybe like we talked about a couple of minutes ago, you are in this catch-22 where it's like, I don't have the certifications, but I can't get hired, and I can't get hired because I don't have the certificate, like that kind of thing, right? And having this hands-on practical experience that we just talked about as well in the last question, right? So, having those opportunities to have a home lab and start to see, hey, if I lock these ports on a firewall, that means that these, websites I can't get network traffic through, or understanding how, all of a sudden, if I start, running Wireshark and I start seeing this traffic go through that, oh, if I, see these, like just understanding what is going on in your home network, right? Like, oh, my smart TV is reaching out to an advertising server 60 times a day, right? Like, why is that going on? Stuff like that, right? You start to notice these patterns, these trends, and you start to see how technology works, amongst each other in this, kind of like biome or sphere of digital space, right? I think really building on that, and starting to see how those things work with each other. Another thing you can do too is in very small ways is you say, you like Jimmy, you start working through Try Hack Me, you start to understand some of these things. You have a home lab, you're starting to understand a little bit what goes on with security. Find a small or even a local place that maybe maybe have a connection, and offer to do a security talk. I had a school district that approached me a couple of years ago, and I've done it every year since I've been interning in security, right? So I started out basic intern, knew a couple of things about security, but I was able to put together a cybersecurity 101 briefing of like best practices. And I was able to do that, go and give this 30-minute talk to probably about 5 or 6 people. Nothing, super big, wasn't, front page of Time magazine or anything by any means, right? But it was a good experience for me to be able to research and understand these security concepts and then share with other people. I got their feedback because they started asking me questions like, oh, I don't understand what this password manager thing is. Can you help me with that? Like, what's the real benefit to doing that? Why should I do that, right? Because it's hard to put all my passwords in there and manage them, and start to show them that difference, and start to show them the impact that security really has on a day-to-day life. So that gave me exposure then to another group of people and their feedback as well. So I took that back and was like, oh, that's really interesting. And just continue to snowball off of that, right? So finding those little ways to be involved, whether in the community or as well, with your own home lab, developing, building out things. You can buy a Raspberry Pi for pretty cheap and put WireGuard VPN on it and like a firewall and all those kinds of things, using Docker containers nowadays. And I know there's a bunch of SANS folks who are like Kubernetes experts and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure there's great resources out there for it. And just see how that works, right? See what's going on in your environment, take what you have and use that to build upon. It's one of those things where you could literally start today, and really let that snowball into something greater.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I heard getting involved, giving back, networking, finding mentors as a
Yep.
part of it, building your brand, all were kind of themes that I think you just highlighted there.
100%.
Sara.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Just to add on to that, I mean, there's a lot of good advice that you've already heard here. I would say also for the person who's asking, how do you transfer from another job to cyber? Let's say you're an IT auditor. You already have some background in IT, how to look at the risks in whatever you're auditing, right? You have a risk kind of mindset as well. You can transfer that skill into something like a GRC area of cyber, because everybody thinks they want to be a pen tester or an ethical hacker, etc. That's a wonderful place to be, but not everybody ends up there, and not everybody keeps up their interest in it forever, right? Because some of these areas, like for instance, in the SOC, when you have incidents, you have to do an incident response. You have to do, you might have to get involved with the forensics of it, or, a lot of analytical work. Some people love it and some will get tired of it after some time, because you have to be on 24 hours. And I'm coming from a background where I kind of zigzagged into all of this, because I was on the business side. Then I just took courses. We didn't have, I'm going to date myself. you were you were a techie when you knew what Windows NT meant. So I went from business to taking courses on, let's say, programming, database administration, got involved with storage area networks, got involved with all the newer technologies that would keep coming out, cloud, and even if you remember things like Hadoop, etc., right? So you're always trying to learn something. Now you're laughing because you're going back so many years, right? But the thing is that if you come from another background, for instance, again, the other thing that I did was I went into SAP consulting, and that again kind of took me into both sides, to IT and to the business side as well. And I got involved in business continuity, disaster recovery. And from there, I got into broader areas of risk, operational risk, enterprise risk, resilience, cyber, managing the whole gamut of all the risks. So your path can be very zigzagged, right? But you can leverage things that you bring along with you, whether it was project management, getting on some project, you're going to learn. When you manage an IT project, you're going to learn a lot of things from the project that you're managing and from the people, because you'll also have to learn to be very agile mentally to capture all of those things in your mind. Like Jibby said, you have to be very organized and be able to document things for yourself as well. And Zach had mentioned earlier how you would analyze something when there's an incident. Maybe you learn how to do the 5 whys, why did this happen and why did that happen, and the next step and the next step, and dig, 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 dig. That is one way of training yourself how to do a root cause analysis. So if you are doing, say, business continuity, you can move into cyber as well to some extent, because there will be disasters that may be caused by a ransomware. So there's a lot of convergence in many of these risk areas, and project management, IT audit, and if you can get into something like help desk, system administration, you can take, try to get some demos from the vendors. There are all these firewall vendors who do demos, and they will give you some time to play with their system after they do the demo. It gives you some hands-on experience. So I would say do all of those things. And like you said, how to showcase that stuff on your resume, definitely. Like Jibby gave you an example of all his accomplishments that he puts on. Okay, he doesn't find the A+ as useful. Don't put it on, because those are things that if you look at job descriptions and an ATS tool is looking at those, they will throw you out if you don't have the main things that the job description is looking for. So if you find, as you look for jobs, you look at job descriptions, if they're looking for those kind of certifications, then if you don't have them, try to showcase what you have that those things would show, right? For instance, what do you understand about networking? Have you done something where you've done some kind of vulnerability management? Do you know about firewall rules? What kind of rules are bad? What needs to be fixed? Do you know how to prioritize? Do you know how to manage risk around these things? So that may be one transferable skill that you can highlight as well. So you can come from these various areas and get into cyber, and you can pivot back and forth. You can come from privacy. You could be a lawyer, and you may have dealt with some kind of privacy issues wherever you've been. We always call in lawyers when we have a breach, right? So that's another skill that can actually go straight from privacy into cyber, because now you know what kind of information needs to be protected, what is sensitive information, right? So one of the really good things that Zach mentioned also is look out in the community. If you can volunteer your skills as raising training and awareness, show them how they should not fall for phishing and those kind of email compromises, or protect your information. So those kind of things, I think if you can highlight those as accomplishments like Jibby did, or like Zach probably did as well, I think you are at least one step ahead in the game, whether you have a certification or not. The certification part is merely just to get in the door, because right now a lot of recruiting is looking at resumes through tools which look for keywords. So if you don't have those, make sure that your resume shows what you have accomplished that the certification would have given you.
I love the fact that you just hit on that last bit there about tailoring your resume, understanding what the open rec looks like, and making sure that it aligns your experiences with what you're presenting, with what the company or the organization is actually looking for. That is so critical. Great. Zach, I kind of want to build on what you were saying. You were talking about networking. You were talking about giving back. How do you get involved and find some of these communities of interest in cybersecurity? Like, do you go to local conferences? Do you just start playing like Try Hack Me? What are your thoughts? And Zach, since it's building on your comment and your experiences there, we'll start with you and then we'll move over to the rest of our panelists.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks. I think it's leveraging your own network that you might have. So for me, it was a former actual teacher that I had who was part of that conference and said, hey, we're doing this for some of the other teachers in the district because we saw that they were lacking with some of their technology skills and they felt like they were falling behind. So they wanted to give them an opportunity to, before the school year started in late August, to get together and have like a mini tech conference for the district. So I was able to get involved that way. People that I already knew and they're like, hey, we know that you're doing some of this stuff while you're in college. It'd be great if you were able to come and, just give some insights on security and what that means. So I was able to build upon that. And then also having a network of security professionals and kind of offering, yourself to do those kinds of things, and putting that bug in people's ears, say, hey, I really feel like you could benefit from having a security talk here, or it would have a great impact that this organization recently went through a breach, or maybe they had an incident, right? And say, hey, based on that, we can come in and say, hey, here's how not to fall for phishing again, or here's some insights on what social engineering might look like and how to be vigilant against that. So really trying to find those opportunities and kind of listening for it, and just getting to know people across technology, right? So maybe it's at conferences, like you said, like SANS has great conferences. I've met people at them over the last couple of years. I've met individuals who say, hey, we're working on this. It would be really great if we had, a couple more insights, like, oh, I know a few things about that. Let me get you, in touch with some people, or maybe volunteer myself to be part of that. But I think that the networking side of it is really important, as well for me, being a veteran. I served in the Marine Corps for a couple of years. Having that community as well. There's always people who are looking to transition out of the military and get into security or technology in some sense. And finding those veteran events as well. Because a lot of those guys and girls who served in the military, are looking for that kind of skill set, looking for that expertise. Many of them are in the same positions as people who are watching this right now, right? Like, hey, I'm getting out of the military, I'm transitioning, what do I do? So finding those people who maybe serve in the same branch as you, or have that experience, maybe work for an organization you're looking to get into. Just trying to identify some of those familiarities. Take the things, like we said, with skill sets before, maybe take those things you have in common with somebody else. Hey, we serve in the same branch of the military, we're from the same hometown, we went to the same college. Identify those things, and then use that to say, hey, I saw you went to this university and we graduated 2 years apart. I'm really interested in security. Do you mind if I have 10 minutes of your time? I've done that a couple of times with people, and it's always, I have 100% success rate with that so far. So finding those key things that you have in common with people, and just use it to leverage that security network and continue to grow.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, you hit on empathy there, and that's something that everybody, we've all started from somewhere before. Finding the common
Right.
characteristics that really help with that kind of stickiness and connectivity.
Yeah, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and feel that imposter syndrome in security. So being able to identify and have like a friend in your corner, even if it's just that easy connection from college or a group that you were part of, really helps to feel like you're not in it alone.
Yeah, for sure. You indirectly hit on it, but for those who are active military and looking to transition out, there's a skill bridge program that a lot of companies actually support. I highly encourage you take a look into that. Cool. Let's go to Sara next, and then Jibby we'll hit you on the tail.
Okay, so as far as building your groups, etc., I think you already hit on it, Zach. go through your college, veterans. There are other affinity groups. It's so many of them now, Latino, Asian Pacific. There are a lot of women's groups, African American, all the various groups that that you can maybe leverage. Again, finding that common sort of thread is very important, where you can find common skill sets or common backgrounds, etc. And John, you also mentioned mentoring earlier on. That is also very useful, especially if you can find mentors outside of your company or outside of your inner circle. That to me gives you a little bit more of a broader exposure, and you can be speaking much more freely sometimes to someone who's not going to impact you inside the company, etc. I do that quite a bit as well. I'm a member of something called Executive Women's Forum, and we do mentoring every summer and winter as well. So as a mentor, I also learn from my mentees. Everybody brings their own skills into it as well. What is also important is if you can find a sponsor within your company. And there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor, as you know, because a mentor is there like somebody who can give you feedback and guide you through it, make you think through things. But the sponsor is the one who can actually remove roadblocks for you for moving further in your career as well. Let's say you're coming from a different area. Maybe you are in IT, but you want to get into the cyber piece, or you are in audit or legal or compliance or some other area of the company, or you're in a PMO. You want to find a sponsor in your organization who can talk to the other organization, or even find someone in the cyber organization that can sponsor you. And then that takes you much further, because there are so many people with skills. How do you stand out? That becomes another thing to look at, because how do you stand out? Again, a good network, a good affiliation group or something, mentoring, sponsoring, they all have their value. And of course, a lot of it has to do with your own drive. What is it you truly want to do, and how badly do you want it? And again, your passion for something, for learning something and sticking with it, because you really want to focus on something that you like and that you can sustain. Because otherwise, yes, it's good to get a taste of everything, but find something that fits with your personality, with your life, with the way you like to work as well, for it to have longevity as well, right? As I mentioned earlier, if you want to be in the SOC, it's very exciting. And especially when a breach happens or an incident happens, it's super exciting, because then all hell breaks loose. But if you like that, if you thrive on excitement, then that's something you will do forever. But if you'd rather have something more analytical or something that goes broader and is more strategic, you might want to go the governance, risk, and compliance route. Something that's more operational, you want to maybe start looking at, maybe even identity and access management, right? Security architecture. There are so many things you can do in cybersecurity. You have to find where you can get in, of course, right? Because sometimes you can't have a choice. You just get in somewhere that you can get in, and then try to move around within the organization. But that's kind of, again, a lot of it also has to do with whether there's an opportunity out there that you can leverage and latch on to, because it's not that easy all the time. I'm the first one to say that, because my own career has been very zigzagged, and go from here to there, to there, to there, and then broad, and then narrow, and then broad. But it's more about what you like and what you can really throw yourself into. You could become a bug bounty hunter, right? If you have to teach yourself here also. You can't just expect that a certification teaches you. Like Jibby said, he forgot everything after he took the test, right? So what good is that? So you want to have sustainable kind of learning throughout your career. and then just have a flexibility in your career path. Don't feel like, okay, I did this, now I'm not really good at this. Should I try this? Yeah, try it. Why not? Try it, but then figure out something that you like and then just keep pushing forward. But the main thing is, I think, the passion, the curiosity, the drive, the willingness to do the hard work. Nothing comes easy to anyone, and you have to really teach yourself, go for things that are out there. I think there are sometimes they offer free certifications also. I think somebody had in the Slack as well, ISC2 was offering some basic certification for free. If you're getting something for free, you have the time, go do it. How can it hurt you?
Very cool.
These are some of the thoughts I thought I would put forward here.
Very cool. Thank you for that, Sara. Hey, Jibby, I'm going to ask, two things. One, I'm surprised
sure.
none of you guys have said B-sides as local cybersecurity chapters to get involved with, because they have a bunch of different events everywhere, all over the country. But Jibby, for this answer, I know that you're pretty passionate on kind of both being a mentor and getting mentored and getting involved in KC7. Can I also ask that you address maybe InfoSec Twitter as a source of information, as a source of the ways we give back and stay in touch with what's out there?
Yeah, I'm really bad because I am very much a lurker on Twitter and a reposter because I don't really share my thoughts, but I think it is actually a very, very important place to be because you do find out a lot of interesting stuff that's going on, and it also shows like the playful side of information security. Because beyond all like of the breaches that people are talking about, there will be like silly memes that people are sharing, and it lightens things up, and I think that's like a good contrast that it brings out. I'm very much a big fan of Andrew Thompson, Imposed Costs Twitter account, because he says like some funny stuff, and he also brings out some daily challenges that are fun to play. So yeah, InfoSec Twitter Twitter is not a big environment for me. I'm very much more on Discord, but I do check it out every day pretty much, especially when I need a laugh, because there's always somebody posting some kind of a funny meme or some kind of a funny like animated thing. Yeah, in terms of like kind of getting involved, I think that's the one thing that I felt was like something I wish somebody would have told me in the very beginning to do right away. Because it took me a long time to start making friends, like Zach said, and finding mentors, going out to local events. It took, we talk about imposter syndrome. I'm the watchmaking guy, right? Like, I was afraid to go out to like a local meetup and tell people, hey, I'm interested in the security thing, because I thought they would laugh at me. But it was always the opposite once I went there. Whenever somebody met me, they were always very excited, like, oh, wow, that's what you do and you're interested in what we do? Let me tell you about what I do. And I think that's what people really enjoy doing. So I definitely encourage everybody who's watching this to, reach out to anything that you find local. B-Sides, fantastic. I was just down to at B-Sides San Diego, and it was an amazing conference. It was so much fun, and I met so many cool people down there. Like I said, I'm very much active on Discord. And so if you're just starting out and you're feeling like, how can I, kind of contribute? That's a great place to be, because you can always ask a good question there, or you can always give a good answer there. And, you kind of do things little by little and you build upon that. And I've made my friends there as well. Like my friends that I made last year at New to Cyber through the Slack channel, they kind of helped get me through a lot of like the down periods when you're like questioning yourself. Am I meant to do this? Should I be doing this? Because that happens. Really great friends, and I'll give you their handles, Moonfish and Haxlotl. They were like they kind of really kind of helped set up the stage for my journey. And Haxlotl is somebody who had a lot of experience, and I kind of emulated what he did, and I learned how to help people through watching what he did, which was awesome. My way into cybersecurity was that my best friend got me interested in it. He passed away last year, and once he was gone, I was really lost, and I was very close to just quitting. And it took like mentors. Wayman Ho reached out to me, and he kept me going. Another really great friend, Mary Ellen Kennel, she kept me going. Like, I think those type of things are really important to establish, because without a team, it's really hard to get through those down periods. And I'm sure, like, especially with the way that the job market is now, you're gonna have those periods where you feel like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And so you need your support group, And you also need people to keep you interested in new things as you're kind of still working to get that job, right? Like you're not just sitting around feeling sorry for yourself because you're keeping yourself busy and you're working on other things. And so when those opportunities come up, you're going to be ready for it because now you've just built up more skills that you can bring to the table. But yeah, like I totally like the community stuff is like, and it just makes you like, it makes it so much more fun to feel like you're a part of something. Yeah, you go down there and you meet people, you make friends, and now like I know so many people that I've met over the last year. I have more friends in information security now than I do like in other places. I've only been here for a year. I go into a watch like parts house and nobody wants to talk to me because I'm their competition. But I go like I'm to a conference and like everybody's my friend because we're all working on this thing together, right? We're all getting better together, and I think that's the cool thing about it. And the faster you do that, the faster you will get over that imposter syndrome.
That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing those insights. And I will personally share, when I go to conferences, I'm actually an introvert and I'm terrified and have terrible anxiety. But I make it a goal to try and meet 4 or 5 people at every conference I go to, just so I can progressively build the network. And I actually think that's pretty common for a lot of us in this field, but that's maybe an aside. Well, I think we have time for maybe one more question if we can do like 30 seconds each for the answer. Parting thoughts, alibis, any other insights you can share with yourself, others, things you wish you knew getting into this? Seriously, 30 seconds though. Jibby, we'll start with you and we'll work towards Sara. And Sands, please cut us off if we hit time.
Okay, I think Sara talked about it in the last thing she said, and it's find something you're passionate about. There are many different things that you can get involved in, but find the one thing that you really connect with and just kind of focus on that and let that be the thing that leads you. I think that's like it's easy to get overwhelmed with the scope of how many different avenues you can go in, but find the one that matches you best. And I was very lucky that I found that early on with K27 and just investigating things. But I think like if you can just find the thing that you love to do, it'll get you very, very far because you need that love to kind of keep pushing you forward. And don't worry too much about what other people are doing. Yeah, do your own thing. Have fun with it. It should be fun. The journey has been incredibly fun for me, and I just want it to be fun for everybody else out there too. And so, find that one thing that you love, have fun with it, and you will get there. I guarantee it.
I love that. You do you. Enjoy the journey. Zach, over to you.
Yeah, I would definitely just echo what he just said as far as, find the parts that are interesting to you and run with it. It's very easy to get burnt out in security if you're doing something that you don't enjoy, or sometimes it does get stressful, right? Sara said about, the excitement of working an incident in the SOC, but sometimes you can be working 70, 80-hour weeks to fill coverage for that incident, and you're working through holiday weekends and all those kinds of things. So it can be very easy to get burnt out in that sense. So have a network of people, mentors who can help you along and show you the way, people that you trust and you can, kind of vent to a little bit or ask for guidance, and then also find the things that are interesting. I think that's, some of the best advice you can get, and just enjoy it, right? Like enjoy the moment, and enjoy, the journey, because you're going to start maybe as a tier 1 security analyst and say, yeah, I know the equivalent of a security plus. And then 10 years from now, you're going to be fine tuning and building your own SOC for an organization as the SOC, lead in a mid-level manager role. You're like, wow, look at all this knowledge that I have. So it's a fast journey. It's very fast paced. Don't be overwhelmed by that. Just like a roller coaster, right? Just like hold on and enjoy the ride. So yeah, I think that would be my advice.
Amazing. Thank you. And Sara, last but not least.
Yeah, so, the two gentlemen actually really gave you very good parting shots here. The only thing I would add is we talked about conferences earlier as well, and it's great for networking, etc. But some conferences can be expensive, $1,000 maybe, or maybe more. So sometimes it's difficult to get a free pass. If you can, go for it. But also to teach yourself, look at NIST. NIST has publications that will teach you a lot of stuff. Teach yourself from NIST. We just finished up adding a capability called Govern to the cybersecurity framework that I was part of. And, there's a lot of learning out there. Go do it yourself and be excited about it. And like Zach said, it's a journey, not just a destination. You will get there, but enjoy the journey and make that your primary focus, to enjoy that journey. And whether you're technical or not, build your technical skills as you go. Once you get in, even through PM or whatever route you get in, build your technical skills. Because if you want to go and be a CISO one day, then you do need the technical skills. Then you do probably eventually, after 5 years or whatever, you can get your CISSP and other certifications, which people are looking for a CISO to have. But if you want to stay non-technical, you can also stay on the other side of things, the GRC piece, where you still need vulnerability management and some kind of technical knowledge, because if I hire you, I'm looking for you to understand networking, to understand vulnerability and threat management, and some amount of technology exposure, what is a software development lifecycle, and those kind of things. But you can build on these things. But basically, like the other two gentlemen said, and you said, John, enjoy the ride. And there's a big world out there. Just be courageous, be bold, make that move.